Hey, and welcome back to the Ecom 80/20 podcast, where we help ecom businesses work smarter, not harder. Isaac, how you doing this morning?
Good morning, guys. How are you? Thanks for joining us again. Weather's dropping. We're
And
excited to get out to warmer weather real soon.
it's cold all around, but we're looking forward to brighter days. So,
Warming your
what we
hearts and hearts,
yeah,
as they say. That's actually a Groundhog Day quote. It's funny because that's coming up. Reminds me of a story where I went out to. I actually went to Punxsutawney around this time, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, out for Groundhog Day. So that's where Groundhog Day takes place. For those that don't know, and one of their lines is from Phil Connors was that the groundhog lights our hearths and hearts. So
nice.
here's to warmer days.
Yes. Did your groundhog see its shadow when you went the other day?
I don't really remember. I'm not sure. I guess
Either way,
so much activity that there was. Yeah. Either way, winter was another 6 weeks or so.
So for today, we're going to talk about continuing the topic of being smart marketers. And when it comes to smart marketing, you have to get into the nitty gritty. You have to get into the technology side. So for us today, we're going to be talking about building the right marketing tech stack.
Yep.
And we throw out that name, that phrase in business, a tech stack. What does that actually mean? What does that refer to? In general, it refers to the technology and the software that you have behind everything that you're doing, so that you can work seamlessly and smoothly. And as always, smarter, not harder. Make sure all your ducks are in a row, because you have to have. And what we talked about last week was building that foundation. And
Yes.
when it comes to a foundation of everything that you're doing, you have to have the right technology in place, or else you're going to be, overworking and doing things that you don't need to be doing all the time, and redundancies are not necessarily in place. So you want to make sure that your technology stack is done the right way. We call in this side of the industry, MarTech, as in marketing technology, marketing tech stack. And today, that's what we're going to be talking about. So, Isaac, you built a bunch of businesses. You worked with a bunch of businesses that have done e-commerce. So, if you were to pick, aside from the website, obviously you have to start with the website. So that's the number one place where you'd start, whether it's WooCommerce or Shopify or BigCommerce or even Amazon. But forgetting Amazon for now, where would you go after the website is chosen and built and set up properly?
Well, it's a good question. I think that most people tend to think of their website as the end all be all, and they just rely everything. It's a very product centric approach that a lot of e-commerce brands have. And what they eventually will start to realize, and they do start to realize now, is that even their website needs to be focused around the customer. Everything needs to be focused around getting data, personalizing the experience for a customer, and just that's what has to revolve around. So in many cases, you need to kind of like focus specifically on a good CRM, even a good email platform. And in some cases, some brands focus on a CDP, which is called a customer data platform. That's for those that are really here to play. But I definitely think that focusing everything you have around the email, around the customer, will be the key towards winning e-commerce nowadays.
Right, and it goes into the website itself. UX is very big, user experience, and you can't just put a product up on the website and hope everybody wants to buy it. You have to take them through the customer journey and really feel like they are buying your product because it'll make their life better. And you have to show that throughout the website and throughout all your marketing material. But we talk about benefits, not features. Benefits of how you're going to enhance the person's life, as opposed to the features of your product. So it's less product centric and more customer centric, and that starts from the website. It goes all the way through every touch point that you have with your customers throughout the purchase and then throughout post purchase.
Right.
So we're not going to touch too much on the CDP, but go into that a little bit more. Explain to our listeners what the CDP means. What is it? Is it customer data platform? And why it's more enterprise level than smaller to medium businesses.
Yeah, it's more enterprise level, just simply from the price points, right? So like it definitely is extremely expensive for the normal business who's in the e-commerce business, who's in the $1 to $10 million range, a CDP could be kind of cost prohibitive. We're talking maybe $300,000 to $500,000 a year, maybe more now. Not entirely sure, but the customer data platform essentially centralizes all your data. It takes away the silos, right? Historically, many people will run ads on Facebook, and Facebook has their own data sets and then and data points about their audience. Google has their own also about your audience. Amazon, if you're selling on Amazon, has their own data about your customer, and there could be wild swings all the way across. And then of course your actual website, your POS, your database actually has different data. So there's kind of like, it's all data that's siloed, and there's no one single source of truth, as they call in the industry. And you need to have that single source of truth to make the best decisions. So everything you have, everything you do should revolve around a customer. And then you just push that data out to Facebook and you push it out to Google, because you know the single source of truth is your CDP, is your database, and that's all that matters. Then you can make some really, really great business decisions by having that.
So,
And
how does a lower level, not enterprise level, small to medium businesses up to, around 250 employees maximum would be small to medium. What is that? Where do they take whatever they would have gotten on a CDP, and how do they use that on other types of platforms that'll work better for them, also at a more cost-effective solution? So, we're looking at a couple of options for our customers as well, but there are platforms out there when it comes to reporting and integration and getting as much data as you possibly can, so that you can make smart decisions. And we'll go into that a little bit later in the show today, but let's go back all the way to the beginning. Okay, so we've just built a website for our customer, or a customer comes to us with a website, and now we say, okay, we need to do marketing, we need to do email marketing. So what is next on that stack? The next piece of equipment that you would need would be your CRM, your ESP. CRM is customer relations management, ESP is email service provider. So wherever it is that you're going to be sending your emails out from, because that's where the email and the data is going to be collected into, so that your email marketing can work smarter and do more personalization. So let's talk about that for a few minutes.
Sure. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned it that way, because that is exactly how, is exactly how a lot of brands think about it. They think, let's build a website. Okay, now we need to do email marketing. Well, no. Well, that's unfortunately what a lot of brands think about, and that's where they get it wrong. The first thing, this isn't me quoting, but this is from Harvard Business Review, and this is from McKinsey. The first thing the direct-to-consumers, the digital-first brands are doing is they revolve everything around the customer first. They're omni-channel, and they're not building a website. They're building just another way to connect with the customer. So they're revolving everything that they do around customer insights. They have a customer-centered mindset, and then they start building the website on top of the data. So it's just a fascinating thing. And then they're constantly iterating. So if you're a brand that's looking to start out and just kind of start the right way, start with your, like you said, their ESP and CRM first, because that will enable you to have the insights you need to constantly change your site. Like we're working with one brand now that just literally launched their site, and was kind of like, oh, I wanted to change this UX, I want to change that UX, I want to change this banner and that banner, and they were trying to perfect it before there was any traffic.
Yeah. So
and that was
conversations was like, just let's relax, let's take a deep breath, let's let it run for a month and see what the customer tells us, because what we might think is important is not necessarily what the customer believes is important. And
correct.
We won't know that until we have the data.
Exactly. You don't know that. And that's really what the direct-to-consumer brands are doing. They're constantly just changing and monitoring. It's funny because we have another client who launched a website and said, I want to kind of steadily kind of leak out these offers to my list over time, 1,000 people at a time, just slowly go. And you know what? They're constantly changing their site based on the data that's coming in. That is how the top brands are doing it. And no one knows this because the customers are just behind the scenes. They don't see the small little changes based on the data, but that's how you do it. And it's slow, but when you get it right, you get it right.
Slow and steady.
So center everything around the customer, starting with your email platform. For those that this is the most approachable one, right? Klaviyo, or we would say MailChimp at this point. Like if you're on MailChimp, start everything around that platform and build off of that data.
Great, awesome. So then once we get our ESP CRM in place, okay, we've built our website now and we're starting to get traffic. We want to start to get more traffic. We want to start to get more people. So part of that marketing technology stack is going to be the bunch of integrations to help improve your website, help improve your data collection, your data analytics, and everything that's involved in getting as much information as we possibly can about our customers, about our visitors. So number one, somebody comes to a website, the first thing they see is that pop-up. Pop-up should be a big driver of leads, of signups, of discounts that we might be offering to customers. So we want to collect that, and there are plenty of the ones that come out of the box with Klaviyo and MailChimp. You just put a snippet of code on your website, and then a pop-up comes up, and you can design it on the back end, and you can collect email addresses, you can collect SMS, text message numbers, and then offer your discount to your visitors, or if you're offering a download, a guide, a lead magnet, as we call it. But aside from what's out of the box, there are a lot of the other providers that give you a lot more flexibility with those pop-ups. So one of the ones that we talk about, we call it a lightbox. You can do it as a lightbox. You can do it as a slide in the corner. You can do it as an exit intent pop-up. A lot of different ways to get that sign up, and choosing the right provider for that is going to make a big difference. So name some of the good ones that we worked with in the past and what makes them special.
Sure. I think that's a good point, is that the tech stack should be anything that's enhancing your existing setup. And like you were saying, a lightbox, a lot of people rely on just the out of the box technologies that their email platform or their CRM or their CDP offers. And reality is there's a lot better tools out there, and that's what allows you to stack each thing on top of each other. So some of the best ones I've found were like lightboxes such as Upsell It or Opt-in Monster are great just from a lightbox perspective. And I see you're going in that acquisition start first, which is so smart, because you got to start with acquiring the data first before you do anything. So the lightbox is a perfect place to start. And a lot of people think it's super annoying and it's invasive and it's terrible, but that's the beauty of having this technology. You test it, right? You test what's working, you test what's doing. So I would find lightboxes from Opt-in Monster, Upsell It have been extremely robust. And we're not just talking pop-up when you come to the site. We're talking like remember you 3 months later when you come back and saying, hey, welcome back. You left this coupon in your inbox, left this coupon here. Use it now because it's only got 10 seconds left or whatever it is. And
that's a cool feature that it's going to remembers that you came to the site. So there are ways to turn it off so that you don't get annoyed with every time you show up to the site. Right. But the fact that you can even dynamically code that and say, hey, first name, you left this in your shopping cart, or you were looking at this when you came here 3 months ago. Yeah. That's amazing technology that's really in there to help enhance the user experience and make it successful for the business as well. So yeah, I found that the people that are mostly annoyed by these light boxes are actually just the owners or the people who are actually on the site all day long. Right. That's it. The coders, guys like me who work
on the coders,
the site, you keep seeing that thing. Enough of this. I got to shut this off. And then when you shut it off, you forget to turn it back on, and then it's no. So the Lightbox is a great way to collect data. Another one that we've come across recently was something called getemails.com and Foresight. What they do is they collect the information from people who might not have given that information, right? That it's not as creepy as it sounds, but they collect an email address based off an IP address, based off of a checklist that a list of email address matches. There are ways that they verify the data that they're getting and allow the business owners to get more data than if somebody doesn't opt in right away, and allows you to message them, to personalize your messages to them as well, and ask them to sign up if they have not already, so that they can be subscribed to your list. So talk about those kind of technologies as well, and what makes them unique. It's really cool from our side. Like, we love the email acquisition side as well, but it's very cool that even if somebody doesn't sign up right away, you can still find ways to message them. So let's talk about that for a bit.
Definitely. That's a good point. And you're in the technology side, so you know how to add these technologies on that won't slow your site down. I think you'll see that
Sure.
in your experiences using Google Tag Manager. I think overall is probably the best fit because you can add all these tags without slowing the site down. But that's part of that's part of the tech stack that no one really talks about too. But in terms of your note about
Any good web developer worth his salt is going to put in the tag manager
yeah,
before the site gets launched. But that's part of the tech stack as well. Yeah.
that's part of the tech stack. Yeah, it's very nice to have all these technologies, but then eventually your site slows down to a crawl, and then you're like, oh no.
Right.
So, and that's why we handpick and cherry pick kind of those technologies that work best. And like you said, there's Foresight or Get Emails, and yeah, they're pretty much like I said, they're additive. They're additive enhancements and third-party tools that will allow you to identify more people who are actually visiting your site. I think the opt-in rate for most websites could be maybe 2 to 5%. For email opt-in, conversion rate is about, let's say, 2%.
Yeah.
So
Nope.
that's if you added it, and assuming they're not like, there's not crossover, that's 7%. 93% are unidentified. So that's where Get Emails and Foresight helps you identify that traffic who's on your site right now and gives you some data about them. And that is additive, that is incremental, and it is extremely useful because you can do a lot with it.
Yeah, and it's 93%. We're not talking about acquiring the rest of that 93%. What we're saying is that 93% is unaccounted for. So these kind of technologies help you collect more and chip away at that 93%. Maybe they'll get you to 75% unaccounted for, but there's no guarantee either. But a lot of these new technologies out there with AI and the checklists that they'll go through, they can match as many as they possibly can that you may not have acquired initially. But there's a lot out there
exactly
that's missing, and these kind of technologies are there to help you acquire more customers and acquire more leads for your business.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll move into, okay, let's just say we've now acquired the email list and people have started to sign up and opt in.
Sure.
From the email side, that's where we focus. So what kind of technologies are there that allow the ESP and the CRM to really maximize its potential? Again, we're not a sponsored podcast. We don't have any allegiances to anybody here. If anybody that's listening wants to sponsor our podcast, please reach out. We'll be happy to have you. But right now,
they'll probably come on our show eventually and just do their own thing anyway.
But for right now, we're technology agnostic, other than what we think is going to help businesses succeed better. So now that we're into an email, we're building out campaigns, and how do we optimize? What kind of technologies can we use to write better emails, to write better subject lines, to test better, to code better? Let's talk about some of those. And you've had experience directly with a company called Persado, where they do subject line optimization. And sometimes you might want to do this subject line and A/B test against that, and which one's going to work better. And sometimes you don't actually know what is going to work. So allowing AI to really get that sense and the feel of the customer itself makes a whole difference when it comes to sending an email. Subject line is what's going to get somebody to open the email. So talk about the personalization that's involved in Persado.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And by the way, I love throwing agnostic at the end of everything. It's a good word. I was like, I'm coffee agnostic today.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's early in the morning, just give me a coffee.
How big is your
brand
cup?
agnostic?
How big is your
It's
cup?
pretty big. You think you beat me. It looks bigger. It looks bigger on the screen. Anyway, going back to your point.
Me, so I'm already on cup number 2. So
yeah. Okay, so there you go. So I think exactly like you said, there's a lot of technologies that can help you increase engagement. I think it just needs to be in a good kind of like strategy from a strategic point of view, which is why we have our spam strategy, which SPAM, right? We focus on segmentation and personalization, automation and multiplication. And therefore, if there's a tool that can help you increase your segmentation, great. If there's one that can help you increase your personalization, even better. So like you said, that's that personalization that comes in. And Persado is a great tool which gives you kind of that emotional learning, that artificial intelligence that says, hey, let's kind of approach our subject lines and our content from an emotional point of view. So like if you've achieved something, it's not just all FOMO, right, all the time. It's about, did I achieve something? Do I appreciate you? Is there gratitude? Is there different emotions behind your email subject lines and your email creatives? And that's something at scale. If you have a 10,000, 20,000, 2 million member email list, you can't scale that from a human perspective
Yeah, it's just
to every single user. You just can't. So you need to be able to use a tool that can scale it, test it, iterate, and refine. And that's kind of the technologies I think we both love. Wouldn't you say? That would be right in your wheelhouse.
for sure. For me, it's all about finding a way to do things once the right way so that I don't have to do it multiple times again in the future. And if it means bringing in new technology so that I could do things better and smarter, that's what our business is all about, is work smarter, not harder. That's what this podcast is all about, is how we can work smarter, not harder. So you can't physically be there all the time. You have to be able to maximize and optimize. So
yeah, and just along your lines, just really quickly, it's also they're really good about testing it out and making sure that you're constantly you're not just guessing and throwing it against the wall. And that's exactly what you're saying. It's that's really working smart, not hard. Something that can learn for you and constantly optimize for you while you're just kind of like chilling with that second coffee. That's great. Yeah. Who wouldn't want that?
Of course. So you touched on Persado as subject line optimization. There are other technologies out there.
Tons.
Now you're building the actual email itself. So what kind of software? We were talking previously, you mentioned software called Litmus, and Litmus does smart coding and other tests so that your coding is going to, when you actually code an email, not use drag and drop in some of these builders, you want to make sure that everything's going to check out. And at the end, you have to run a check at the end of any coding session to make sure that all your lines are aligned and all your images are lined up properly and all your texts are using the right fonts. So let's talk about Litmus for a minute, if you would.
Sure. Litmus is great also because, again, like when you're thinking it from the perspective of segmentation, personalization, automation, and multiplication, this is more of on the kind of automation tier because the better your emails are designed, the less they weigh, the less code heavy they are, the more they render on different devices, allows you to increase your deliverability, allows you to get that personalization into their inbox. At the end of the day, the coding helps you take it to the next level and allows you to do a lot more cooler things like dynamic emails, swap in some Gmail. I think it was Gmail AMP that you can use these little kind of snippets of code that you can put into your Gmail. And
yeah, that's coming. AMP is coming up.
Yeah, AMP is great. I think it's fantastic. A lot of people underutilize it, or maybe they tested it and it didn't see a lift. I'm not sure, but there's a lot of brands. There's a lot of technology you can have within the coding. And you just don't have that. You need someone who's, like you said, ESP agnostic, who is going to kind of like be that technology who just says like, okay, this will render well or it won't render well. And that an extra layer of protection is fantastic. So that would be great.
Awesome.
Having that part.
You mentioned dynamic elements within an email. One of the most important parts of personalization when it comes to setting your email so that it's directly speaking to the person is making sure that the items or products that are listed in an email or the messaging that we're putting together is specific to that customer. So there's a company out there called Movable Ink where you can allow for dynamic elements within your email. So what does that actually mean? What are dynamic elements for our listeners, and how do we use that kind of technology to really personalize that email for them?
Sure, that's a great question, and it's dynamic email and kinetic email, I guess, depending on how you call it, is all about saying how do I make my email live beyond just that first open or click, right? So it's like my email is real estate and I want to constantly improve it. And some great use cases are, some basic use cases are actually a countdown timer or maybe you put the weather at the bottom of your email or you put the date or time, that kind of like basic stuff. That's nice. But really where you get really souped up is where you start saying, let's put in the email, let's put in the stock level and on, let's say, a flash sale. And the minute that item hits, and then people open the email and it says flash sale, but the minute after about 3 hours when people are buying the product, that image automatically changes and shows only 10 left the next time you open the email. And that just gives that extra urgency, like, oh man, I should have clicked on that email, 3 hours ago
Yeah,
and
that's
bought it. And
yeah.
yeah, and that's just one level. You can do dynamic, you can do carousels within the email, very similar to a website. You can do,
Swipe,
swipe it left and
swipe
right.
left or right. Yeah.
Correct. And that it's just so many different options to make your email more engaging to eventually, like we always say, to get that click.
Yeah,
So that's really,
really cool. That's really cool that you can have, we always think that when somebody sends out an email, it's, oh, I sent that, I can't do anything about it, I can't take it back.
it's
Now,
gone. Yeah.
yeah, but now you can allow your emails to live and breathe and be current and active, so that the stock level is a huge one where somebody can notice that when a stock level hits that certain threshold, the image is going to change or the text is going to change. So
Yeah.
that's really cool technology. So we spent a lot
I
of time
can't
talking.
tell.
Go ahead.
So yeah, I was just gonna say I can't tell you how many times we've sent an email and there was an error. Actually, you think about it from an error perspective, there was
Yeah,
an error, and guess what? We were able to swap that image back out and with a new one that was totally fresh, and no one knew the difference.
cool.
And that's great for that perspective. And one last thing on the customer service level, because again, if you're customer centric, think about the customer. This is great for transactional emails or forms, surveys, and chatting with customer service. You can have this element within an email and get a lot more data just from the customer in the inbox. Really cool stuff.
Nice. Nice. So we spent a lot of time focusing on email. One of our other core competencies here at High Flyer Digital is SMS. And SMS is still a relatively new technology when it comes to mass messaging. Klaviyo just started introducing it a little while ago. What other services, going back to that agnostic there, but what other services are really killing it in the SMS space that would be a good option if somebody wants a little bit more robust features than what the software that we're used to, Klaviyo, can offer?
Yeah, you're definitely an expert on Klaviyo, and you definitely understand every single part of it. But eventually, every brand, if we do a good job, we all kind of get to that next level. And I think one of the brands I really like seeing, and they have shot up really fast. And I know some of them personally, and they're just great people. They love everything they do. They're very passionate, and that's Attentive. Attentive does some really great stuff on SMS. I tend to hear about Twilio does some good stuff on SMS, but I feel Attentive is it's more of, like I said, a digital first brand. They're digitally native. They understand kind of that vibe of the SMS type of user. I guess that'll be the millennial, Gen Z, and they're just like, they grew up with text messaging. I didn't grow up with text messaging too much. Maybe I just didn't want to pay all these fees for text messaging.
Yeah,
Nowadays it's just
1,000
right.
texts a month, like that.
Remember those days?
Never enough, but
Never enough. But I mean, the people who are growing up nowadays, they take text for granted, and so that's their mode of communication. So
a lot easier
it's
to
good to
text
have that technology.
than it is to
A
talk
lot
to
easier.
a person. So
Yeah, a lot easier. Fortunately, it takes like 40 texts to get over one conversation. You can
yeah,
have a
a lot of
two-minute
things are
call, but whatever.
lost in translation.
Yeah, but I think they do a great job. And if you have the opportunity, for anyone that's listening, they have the opportunity to kind of just do a demo and see just kind of the differences and ask those questions. And the demos are free. You might as well just have them and learn what is additive to your existing technology, and if it makes sense for you, budget wise and tech wise.
Yeah, and then all the softwares that we talked about today, they all have these free trials, and you can test out what's going to work best for your business. And there's no right. It's going to be unique to each business, and we can work with every business that wants to come to us and guide them in the best way possible. But every business is going to be unique, and everyone is going to have to try out whatever works best for them and their industry and their audience, so that when we integrate our spam strategy, it works well, but it's more unique for each individual business. So we recommend everybody trying out. You can always get lost in the sea of technology. Drilling down and finding out the best one, it might take some time, but I think that when you do, you really see a lift in your tech stack, and ultimately your customer data and as much information as you possibly can get out of that. And that goes to the last part of this, where we would just talk briefly. Is one of the things we talked about last week was reporting. And your reporting technology
Oh yeah.
has to integrate with all of these softwares, because you put that in your CRM and you make sure you have your integrations lined up. But if you're not tracking that data and you're not looking at it, and then you go back and you look at it, every month or every week or every quarter, you have to have good technology for your reporting, or else there's nothing to look at. So all these tests can work well. So we've looked at Google Analytics, and then we've done agency analytics, and we're testing out new software called Triple Whale. And there's so many different types of technologies out there when it comes to reporting. Supermetrics is a big one. Just getting the right one. There's so much data, finding the way that you can read it well and your customers can read it well, and getting that information to the right people so that you can optimize your business as best as possible.
Yeah.
Anything?
That's super important. No, exactly what you're saying. You need to have the data will help you make a decision, and that's kind of exactly what you're saying. And the key word to think about it, if we were to sum it up in 4 words, is maybe 6 words. Find your. I guess we could do 2 more words. Find your single source of truth. Right. That's kind of what it. Yeah, 6 words there. Single source of truth, and you can Google that. You can search that up, and that is the common buzzword right now. What is your single source of truth? Which one tells you the facts, not just kind of tells you something that you would like to hear, or vanity metrics or things like that. So get your single source of truth. You'll be in a much better position.
Awesome. So this was fun. It's always fun. This was my favorite episode, because it's technology and it's my side.
You're geeking out on it. I love it.
Yeah, always. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But we're always happy to talk, and it's been fun, and we wish everybody a great week. And thanks again for listening to the Ecom 80/20 podcast.
Thanks, guys. Have a great week.